Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is safeguarding your shipments. Denim's insight on fraud, payments, and carrier vetting with my friend Chad Capooth. How's it going, Chad?
I'm doing well, Joe. How about yourself?
Doing great, doing great. So, Chad, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
My name's Chad Capooth. I'm with a company called Denim. We're a factoring company that specializes in freight brokers and trucking companies, providing them factoring services. And I'm currently calling out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep. So, I've had Denim on the podcast before, so I know it's a great company. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do and who you're doing it for.
Yeah, like I said, we're a freight factoring company. If you've never heard of that, factoring company, what we do is we provide working capital to businesses out there, and we do that by purchasing their accounts receivable at a discount. We primarily specialize entirely in freight brokers and freight carriers. And so what we're doing is they haul a load for a shipper or arrange transportation for a shipper. We come in and we buy that receivable today, advancing up to 98% on that receivable. We'll wait the 30, 60, or 90 days to get paid. That way, the client's already got the money and able to move on to the next load, and we'll take care of the rest for them.
Yeah. So factoring is a very normal service in this business. But if you've never heard of it, it sounds like a damn miracle if you're in that position where you need the money. And I was that guy many years ago. When I learned about factoring, I remember it was in Sports Illustrated, go back to a piece of paper. And I remember it said, sell us your receivables. And I was like, yeah, no one's buying these receivables. And I called, and I remember when they told me, we'll pay you for those receivables in a day or two, I couldn't believe it. It helped me make payroll. I was at my dad's little engineering business, and it's a lifesaver. And I think it's very normal in this business. So I think anybody who's not currently working with a factoring company who needs it should be listening carefully.
Yeah, it's been around forever. You can trace a lot of the Goldman Sachs company start from that. He would go around and purchase these invoices off the street as he walked around, buying IOUs. It's big in Europe and in South America, countries that don't believe in debt because it's not debt. And so it's worldwide. It's just in America, it's primarily been niched in the transportation industry, but you can find manufacturing,
Retail does
healthcare,
it a lot too.
construction, retail. So it's really growing. It's a very valuable product, and it just continues to get better and better each year.
Yep. And I think as we get into this, we'll touch on it. It's not just fast money. It's not just a loan against receivables. There's so much more that goes with it. And that's why we're going to talk about fraud, and we're going to talk about some of the technologies to combat that, and how working with a good factoring company should reduce your risk and get you faster payments, which that in this market, two really big issues in our market is it's a little down. The margins are a little tight, but we also have fraud. And so everybody's paying a lot more attention to those things. So if you can work with a partner like a Denim that helps you, again, de-risk yourself a little bit and get the tools and technologies that allow you to get away from that fraud, those are two big wins.
Yeah, I think if people are familiar with factoring out there, what they think of is they just provide working capital. But you're right. We do a lot more than that. And we do a lot of back office support. We do a lot of the collections work. We're going to help you vet your customers to make sure they're credit worthy, to make sure they're going to pay on time. So we do a lot of behind the scenes. So you're not just getting money, you're getting that charge capital, but you're getting the capital plus the back office support that we offer as well.
Yeah, and I know we weren't going to talk about this, but I also like you guys have that ledger that makes the batching ledger that is awesome. I've had the demo where you get to see who your best customers are and who your worst customers are, who's paying you on time, who's paying you late. Now, anyone at a big brokerage is saying, we have that from our guy down the hall, our accountant, but not everybody gets the kind of reports that you guys create routinely for your customers.
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on. We're trying to level the playing field for both small and big brokers. So the more data, the more analytics we can show you, I think the better you can run your business. And yeah, some people are fortunate enough to hire accountants or whole finance arms of their company to do this analysis, but we just provide it for all clients, regardless of the size, because we think it's important. One thing I will always say, and I think this is true from any business in any industry, but if you don't know your cost, you're lost. And so That's what we're trying to show, right? We're trying to show you where you're losing money, where you're gaining money, and hopefully you can take that information and grow your business within and make better decisions.
Yep. So, Chad, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the juggernaut that is Denim.
Yeah. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm not currently living with the wife in Nashville, Tennessee. Went to school at University of Tennessee in Knoxville, got my
Nice.
bachelor's in psychology there. I think that was 2009. I was coming into the job market. If you remember back in 2009, it wasn't a great economy.
I
Housing
remember.
market had taken a little bit of a bath. And so people weren't really hiring. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so went on a deep sea fishing trip with a friend to celebrate graduating college and met this gentleman named Mark Bergen, and he happened to work at a factoring company out of Memphis, Tennessee. And I never heard about it. He's looking for a job. I'm like, sure, whatever. He's like, you're gonna start in collections. I'm like, okay. So went to collections, quickly got a
That's
deep
fun.
understanding of factoring really quickly and just really enjoyed it. Came to realize what we're doing is helping a bunch of clients to keep their business going and grow. And what that translates into every single employee that they have in their operation, we're helping keep employed and growing as well. So really enjoyed it. And the more we did at that company to try to better the factoring space, but also better our clients' lives, the more rewarding it got for me. Started there. That was a company called National Bankers Trust. Started there at about '09. Was there for, oh gosh, I can't remember now, probably 3 to 5 years. Really grew from collections to leading the collections department to what they called a portfolio manager, which is really on the credit side and risk side and overseeing our clients' portfolios, making sure we're not losing money, making sure they're not losing money. So eventually the credit manager, so overseeing the entire credit and risk department. From there, went to a company called Transfact Capital. Transfact Capital is a factoring company very similar to National Bankers Trust out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Worked with a gentleman named Whitley. He was the owner. He was really looking to improve their operations, improve their risk procedures. And so went on board for there and helped him get things rolling for about a year and a half. He was able to sell that company to a group out of he's in North or South Carolina. And so really enjoyed working with Wit and his vision. And the factoring space back then was, yeah, I'd like to say it was archaic, but it definitely wasn't forward thinking. The National Bank of Trust wanted to change that. And I think Wit always had a vision of how can I leverage more technology to make a better client experience or just better overall company efficiency gains for Transact. And so when he sold, he had the idea of what if we took this concept of factoring and applied it to e-commerce sellers? So people were selling on Amazon, Walmart, Etsy. At first, I thought it was crazy, but the more we sat down, we realized we could do it, and we realized there's tools out there that allow us to do it. So we started that company up and ran it for 2 or 3 years. Saw some really good gains through COVID, and really enjoyed it. To make a long story short, Amazon has their own lending arm, and they lend to their own sellers. They were able to offer much
Hard to
better, hard to compete when they control the platform and the rates that we just couldn't compete against. And we decided that growing into that was becoming more and more difficult. And so I found this company, Denim, through LinkedIn, reached out to them. They were from what I could gather, a technology company at first, a factoring company
Yes.
second, which was unique. And I thought, which is needed in the factoring space. And we needed a disruptor in the space to make these companies scalable to better our clients as well. And started talking to the owners, Sean Vo and B, and just really liked their vision. And so here I am. It's been 2.5 years now, maybe, or 2 years, and just really enjoyed it. That's kind of my journey.
I have interviewed B and Sean, the founders, and I think it's a fantastic story. They're both families of immigrants, and they became friends in high school, maybe younger, and they are still best friends and they work together. And what they are very much are digital natives. You said it, tech first, factoring second. And I think over time, everybody's getting online, but I've done factoring in the past with places I worked. And sometimes it was like, oh, send us a fax. Could you sign that? And then sign that and then scan it and send it back. And you're like, oh my God, what? Like, where am I? 1997? And I always remember at the time when I first got to that little logistics company, they go, oh, here's the fax. And I go, who are we faxing? Like, I don't, is this a time machine? Do you know people from the 90s I can fax to? But it was important for that business, still is. And so I always like the digital natives like Denim. And it is,
We had a week or two ago, we had a customer ask if we could fax something over. I was like, I don't know if we can fax anymore. So yeah, it still exists, but fortunately, it's far and few between nowadays.
yep, yep. So I've got four topics I want to cover with you today, Chad. So the first one, and we talked about these before we hit the record button. We talked for a long time about fraud, and I think initially when you said you wanted to talk about fraud, I was like, wait, how is a factoring company going to help me stop the fraud? But first, before we get into how you guys help prevent the fraud from happening in the first place, first talk a little bit about what's going on with that fraud, because it is getting crazier. We've got a ton of good tools, and we'll talk about some of those tools that you guys partner with, but it seems like it's gotten more sophisticated and more devious. So
Yeah.
please talk about that.
You've been in the transportation space. I'm sure a lot of this audience has been in the transportation space. Fraud is nothing new to the industry, but the way it's evolving is happening quickly and becoming more sophisticated. And I think like that makes a big impact on the industry as a whole. And so what we're really seeing is this injection of AI or other technologies that are capable of really making the fraud much harder to detect. If you look back years ago, someone doctoring paperwork, you could spot it. It wasn't lined up, different font, colors didn't match. It was really difficult. People weren't savants at Photoshop, right? And so maybe they just tried to use a whiteout pen and then draw over it. But now with AI, these AIs, these chat GPTs, these Geminis, whatever AI that you're familiar with out there, can reproduce these documents, right? Or they can produce an email that is authentic. And so maybe back in the day, you had a foreign actor who didn't speak great English. And so their email they wrote to you broken English. And it just didn't seem right. It didn't seem like Robert out of Texas would have such broken English. But nowadays it's perfect, right? It's perfect grammatically and it's perfect from the tone and verbiage. And so it's becoming much harder to detect, and they can also do it much quicker. And so instead of spending half a day on documenting paperwork, maybe now it takes them 10 minutes. And so what's evolved from these, what I would call these kind of single actors committing this fraud, you're now seeing these bigger groups come in and being much more sophisticated. Everything, the technology evolves, but so does the fraud. And so the ability to detect fraud, but so does the fraud itself evolve. And so it's becoming it's a race, and it's becoming more difficult for your day-to-day business owner, especially in transportation space, to stay ahead of it.
Yep. And I want to talk about a few examples I've seen lately. I got a call from somebody and they said they're in Miami. It said that on their phone. And guys had an accent and couldn't really determine the accent, but that's not particularly important. That's probably half of our industry. Who cares? But he said, "Hey, Joe, I would like to get some help moving like 14 containers." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't do that, but I can help you." And he goes, "Oh, that'd be great." Yeah. And so he was very excited and he goes, "Please don't connect me with anybody big. I want to work with somebody smaller, not too small, but smaller." And I go, "Okay, yeah, that's." He goes, "Yeah, the big guys are too bureaucratic or something." And then he was super excited about working with me all of a sudden. And then I was like, "I'll introduce you to my buddy," and I did. And then that was a Friday. On Saturday morning, I called my friend. He didn't answer. I texted him, "Dude, make sure that's not fake. Make sure that's not fraud." And it occurred to me they were too excited to give me that business. And I was thinking, and I don't want to work with somebody too big. Why? Because they might be partnering with somebody who is knowledgeable about what you're doing and they got the tools. I want to work with somebody small who I could take advantage of. Yeah, and I didn't run into this. I talked to Danielle Spinelli from My Carrier Portal, part of Descartes, and she did a webinar recently, and it was really well attended. And she talked about it on my podcast, and she said that this freight fraud has gotten super sophisticated. And wrong way to say it, it's cargo theft. It's beyond fraud, but it's their first cousins. And she said it's not just opportunistic. It's not just onesie twosie. The cartels that kind of cross the border back and forth are involved. This is, and you mentioned the AI. This is a level of sophistication that we didn't have 18 months ago.
Yeah, yeah. The big groups of cartels, Russians. I think there was a big bust by the federal and police agencies out there 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks. A big fraud, transportation fraud ring was busted up. So these bigger groups are moving in. This AI is making it very accessible for them, and the space hasn't been a really front runner in technology. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to come in and take advantage of that. And it's interesting your story because we've had something very similar happen recently at Denim where we have clients that sign up and they don't negotiate the rate. They don't negotiate it. Just sign me up. We're good. And you do this long enough, your spidey senses start to go off, and something doesn't add up.
The problem with that is when you're tired, when you're not paying attention, when you got a lot of other things going on, your spidey senses went off because you've been doing this for a while. I didn't. I mean, I was excited to give my buddy some businz. Right?
Yeah, it's
I'm
just a
like,
different mindset.
you owe me dinner, dude. And now all of a sudden, it's oh, holy crap! Did I just give him a whole bunch of bad? Did I just basically help a fraudster connect to my buddy?
Yeah, it's tough. You're trying to grow your business, right? And so, what's the number one objective? Grow the revenue, right? Grow revenue. And so, it's hard for you to sit there and say, I got to think about fraud too. But I have that advantage. I can sit there and think about fraud. And so when something is so clean and presented to me and there's no indicators, there's no red flags, that's when I get most nervous. And I think for a lot of people, it's the exact opposite. Oh man, this business is great. Nothing could go wrong.
I just there's so many new vectors. They just keep opening up. So one, you probably got the same email I did. I got an email and it says, "Hey, your FedEx shipment, blah blah blah," and it's a QR code, and they want you to scan it. It's infecting your phone. They're basically getting on your phone, and I was like, God darn it!
I get a text message every day trying to pose as Verizon Wire saying, you're late on your payments, click here to make a payment. And it's not even a Verizon link. Every day they do it though. It's
Yeah,
it's a minefield out there.
I get them from women who want to be involved with me. And I look like this and I act like this. And so after a while, like, hey, this isn't normal. Maybe a dozen women a week reach out to me on the phone, but in real life, it doesn't happen. So maybe that's like a
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah. It's a shame because I think probably all of us out there are getting flooded with it right now. And it's a shame because I don't know. It's hard to believe anything you get now.
Yeah, you told me when we were prepping about old school tactics that work really well. Please, what is your old school tactic to avoid fraud?
Yeah, I think with technology evolves, we're using in Denim, we use a bunch of technology out there, right? To verify and vet, and those are great tools. But this old school approach can combat this technology just as fast, right? Just pick up the phone, make a call. If you get a phone call from a customer and they're trying to give you loads, like in your scenario, one thing I'll always tell customers is just call them back on the number you know that belongs to that company and ask to speak to that person again on the phone. Don't exchange their old email or chat because that phone call can tell you a lot. And this technology, they never do phone calls, right? It's always email, voice messages, whatever it may be. So if you can just pick up the phone call, if you can shake hands, if you can go meet in person,
Yeah, even if you just say, "Hey, Chad, I'm looking forward to working with you guys. Please send me an email real quick while we're talking." And then, okay, yeah, that's the right Chad, right? And then to your point, go online, look at their website. And by the way, the company that I told you about that said, "Hey, we need to move a lot of shipments," one of the other things that got me worried about them was I looked at their website. I was like, this is too generic. And I keep thinking, but the fact that they would create a website and make phone calls, somebody's falling for it.
yeah. And again, we've had something very recently. Same thing. They created websites, they created these email domains. They all looked extremely legitimate. And it's hard. Not everybody has time to go sit there and vet someone for an hour to say, something's not right. I'm going to dig it up and find it. But when you partner with someone like a Denim and a factoring company, I've got a whole department dedicated to that. And so that's what we do.
Yeah. And one last one. I'll tell you, this was years ago. So a Visa called me. They said, "Hey, this is Joe Lynch." I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "We have reason to believe somebody's using your credit card." And I was like, "Oh, no way." And he goes, "Yeah, could you please verify with the number just so we make sure it's the right one?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Reach in my pocket. And then I was like, "Wait, shouldn't they have that right in front of them?" And I said, "You should know my number." Click. I was like, I had that card in my hand. I was ready to be cooperative, helping them steal my credit card number.
Yeah, I had a family member that went through something very similar, and it was rather simple tactics on how they did it, but they even did like a live screen share. But there's a way to manipulate what's on a website locally and make it show and say whatever you want. And so that's what they did, and they live shared, and they were trying to get the credit card and bank information. And I'm just saying, thinking like, what could I have told them to prevent that? And it's tough. It's tough to always be on the defense. That's unfortunately where we are now.
So, talk about some of the tools you guys use to prevent this fraud, and we'll talk more about the technology partners you have later. But what technologies are you using? What are you doing to protect your customers?
Yeah, we employ tools all the way from vetting our own clients all the way to vetting our clients' customers. And so, just to give you an idea of some of the tools we use, when we're vetting our clients and onboarding a new client, we use live ID verification through Plaid. So, live ID verification is we previously, looking back, we just asked for a copy of the ID, but we found out that could be spoofed real easy, or they could create a fake ID. So what we now do require is not only do they have to present us with their ID, but they have to go on in a live video and show their ID next to their face at the same time. And then our partner Stripe is going back and then vetting it. Is it authentic? Is it driver's license tied back to their name? Does there look like there's altercations to the ID? Does the face match the live video?
And AI just gets better and better with that stuff. So even though you have a solution today, they'll have to keep evolving it.
Yeah, and we talked about the old school approach of making a phone call. Even AI is now able to take some voice samplings and recreate a voice. So again, good point. Like these AI are evolving quickly, so it's getting harder. But that's one of the tools we implement is live ID vetting. We also do bank verification. So we need to make sure that the bank account name matches the owner or the person signing up with us. That's really important. We do the same thing with carriers, our what we call our brokers, contractors, or carriers that they pay. We want to make sure that the bank account information we receive for that carrier matches the carrier's name, because we think we've had plenty of attempts to fake an ID or steal someone's ID and pretend like they're a carrier when they're not. So we're doing that as well. From a customer standpoint, we're pulling all your credit checks. We're vetting your customers to make sure they're credit worthy. But beyond that, what we're also doing is saying, here's this contact information you gave us. Here's this website you gave us from your customer. We do what's called who is and domain checks. What that's doing is saying, how long has this email account existed? How long has at
Oh,
denim.com
all
existed?
right.
And if the credit report says this company's been around for 15 years, but this email domain's existed for 5 months, something isn't right. It's an indication that there's potential fraud there. And same with the website, because a lot of what you're seeing now is these bad actors can go and create a fake website really quickly. And maybe it's one letter off or there's an extra dash. But how long has that domain existed? How long has that website existed?
Yep, yep. You see it everywhere. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I always get these YouTube videos where they're selling some product. It's a commercial, and the narrator for this cheesy product is always Joe Rogan. And I know he's made a lot of money. He's not doing
Yeah, it doesn't need to do that.
cheesy voiceovers for commercials. And they basically stole his voice, and it sounds like him. And if you didn't realize that he would never do this, you'd think it was him. And anyone with a familiar voice out there, and there's a lot of them, they can easily just say, yep, we're going to get Morgan Freeman to do our new product. I could pay him. He wants $80,000 for his 15 minutes, or I can just steal his voice.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I think Hollywood saw this coming from a long ways away. I think it's like a year or two ago they started saying AI can just steal these actors, AI can just steal their voices, and it's hard. I've heard some of these, and I've heard some of this happen to people with barely any material out there to copy, and AI still feels 90% accurate on their voice.
Yep. So YouTube is cracking down on, well, I just call that the dead internet, where it's not real people. It's AI produced content, which I see a lot of. By the way, the stuff that I see that is AI, I'm pretty sure AI created it. It'll say, "Oh, the guys from Oasis hate these 7 bands," and you're like, I shouldn't care, but I do. But then it's like an 18-minute video that is basically, it's like somebody cut, copy, pasted a whole bunch of information from Wikipedia, and then in the announcers always screw up one of the band names. But there'll be like 18-minute videos, and you're looking, go, yeah, somebody created that like overnight. That took them an hour to create.
Yeah, probably an hour. And I think if you look at AI, especially image generation, like a year and a half ago, it's you could spot it. People had 6 fingers instead of five. But now you look at it, it's almost flawless. And so the evolution of this is crazy. And it's funny you bring up that band. Obviously, just did their new tour again, so it's a hot one. And so you match these algorithms with this AI, and it's scary.
Yes, yes, it is. So we've talked about fraud. Fraud is really evolving. So even though we're going to talk about the technology tools and you got a lot of tech partners that you're working with, all these tools came about and the bad guys just keep evolving and it's getting more sophisticated in the freight fraud, which is sometimes freight fraud still gets your stuff delivered, but it's still not what we want. But cargo theft is part of freight fraud. If you don't know who's moving your stuff, there's a better chance that it's going to end up missing. We talked about it's getting more sophisticated because of AI. We're seeing the cartels and other bad actors really get organized. And I love what you said about old school tactics. If I work with you for the last 5 years and I'm talking to you on the phone, I'm not defrauded. So partner up, get those partners that you've been working with, that you got a good relationship with. They're not the ones who are defrauding you. It's the guys who say, Chad, I can't talk on the phone because I have an accent. And so we just do everything by text. Oh, my website's down right now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a convenient excuse,
You
right?
go, wow, this all seems very normal. He's $20 cheaper, though. So maybe I should work with him.
It's yeah. They know to speak the language. They know it's going to pique your interest. And so they've tried and tested at these events.
They
But
try it all day. All they got to do is win one. So you guys obviously make payments. Talk about this first of all, talk about the process that people are going through. And then I know right now the market is slow. I also know that margins are a little tighter for carriers and for brokers. So people are more likely to need factoring. So talk about what that process looks like. And also while you're talking about it, tell us how this takes the risk out. And obviously, getting paid faster is probably the most important thing everybody wants from a factoring company. But taking the risk out is super important. Talk about the process and how every step of the way you guys help remove that.
yeah, I think it's a great topic. And when you say payments, in my mind, there are two classifications of our payments. There's incoming payments and outgoing payments, right? So especially for the brokers we factor, we have our incoming payments. So getting their customers, getting their debtors to pay. We also have the outgoing payments, which is paying their carriers that they've hired to haul the load. So I'll talk about both on the risk side because they both present unique risk challenges. And I think even the risk is could be broken up into. So when we talk about these, whether you're a carrier or broker and you're hauling these loads for these what I call debtors or your customers, you have two forms of risk, and one of them is the risk of getting paid, and the other risk is are they legitimate and are you hauling for a real company and going to get paid. I think the one we face every day today is the risk of getting paid. I think it's easy to move the load, it's hard to get paid, right? And I always say that from a factoring perspective. It's easy for me to send the money out, it's hard to collect it back. And you are getting these phone calls to move load, or you're seeing it on the load board, but it's hard to know whether that debtor or that customer is creditworthy. Can they pay the bills? Can they pay you on time? They're all going to proclaim a 30-day pay. Not other of them can be like a Walmart out there that can push their terms out there. So they all say they're net 30-day pay. What we found in my research is the true average industry out there for what we call day sales outstanding, or the length of time from when you invoice to get paid, is about 55 days. We at Denim have about a 36-day DSO, which is if you factor in the time for the ACH or check, it's pretty much on time. And so what we do is we do a lot of vetting of debtors. And so we're pulling that every credit report we can. We're running it through our own system because we have a lot of payment data out there. So we know historically how that debtor's paid us. We can now tie that into the credit reports and sit there and say, just so you know, they tend to pay 10 days beyond term. So expect payment around day 40 or 42. What if a lot of our clients do is ask us to help them vet those debtors for them? Should we run for this? Should I take this $100,000 contract, $10,000 contract? And we've helped a lot of clients vet that and let them know whether it's good or bad decision. And ultimately, it's up to them to make the decision. But there's been plenty of opportunities where they've had the opportunity to run for a debtor, and we come back and say, look, these guys are paying a day 95. They sent their day 30, but they're paying a day 95. Are you sure you want to run for this business for them? Because they're not as strong as they're saying they are. And so it helps. It helps our clients at that process understand it.
Yeah, and they might have also had a no pay to you also. So you might say, dude, we can't work with you because they don't pay.
They don't pay. We had to do write-offs in the past. And so we take a lot of that
That's
risk on.
valuable. That's a valuable thing to know. I told you the story I got when I was moving freight. A friend, not a close friend, more of a business acquaintance, told me, oh yeah, I'm going to give you my business. It was a lot of business. I made many trips to visit and it never materialized. I don't think the business took off to the extent they thought it was going to. And then a year later, out of nowhere, he just calls me. He's like, "Hey, Joe, I'm going to give you a shot." I'm like, "Oh, hallelujah." I'm like, I'm dancing around my office. We moved the freight just a little bit, a shipment or two, and we didn't get paid on it. And I told you the day I was getting when I was saying hallelujah, I won this big account, there was somebody who no doubt had shut them off that day. And so sometimes when it falls in your lap, you're like, oh my God, great things keep happening to me.
Yeah, it's hard. You get that contract offer or that dedicated lane offer, and it's hard not to see the dollar signs and take it. And not every brokerages or carrier can afford to pull Dun& and Bradstreet reports, Experian reports, and Sonia reports.
Sometimes they're not all up to date either. That's
No, at the end of the day, these are private companies, and so they have no responsibility or need to share their financial information. And so, what all these agencies or all these reporting companies are running off of, which is what's being reported to them, and payment trends is a lagging indicator, right? You're not going to know about it until it's a trend, and that's usually too late at that point. So, it's not perfect, but it's the best option that a lot of people have access to. So it's hard. So you get come in and this customer says, I want to run $1 million worth of freight for you this year. It's hard to look the other way on that. But what we do is we come back and say, yeah, they went off you a million, but everything we see, they're about a month away from going under. So are you gonna get paid on these loads you moved? And so just be careful. I've had that. I've had clients, we fought over it. They got mad that I wouldn't approve the credit for a debtor.
I called one of your founders B with the deal and said, "Hey, I know so and so is not getting paid on this." And I said, "Maybe you could get involved." And he called me back and said, "They already threw it by us." And we said, "No."
Yeah, it's tough. It's the hardest part of my job is like sitting there and saying, I hear you. I hear this is a good opportunity, but I'm telling you, their payments are getting worse and worse. This isn't good. And one of the particular instances, yeah, it was 2 months later, that company filed bankruptcy. And I think it was Chapter 7. The odds of anybody that ran trade for them to get paid is not good.
Let's just say I am a carrier and I want to work with you guys. And I say, "Oh, I got this deal. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get $2,000. And I would like to factor that money so I can get paid tomorrow. I can get that money. How much would you give me?" I know there's a range. There's a range, but give me
Yeah,
the
it's
range.
anywhere from 90 to about 98% is typical range for us. I would say probably 92, 93% is our average right now. Carriers are maybe a little bit higher because their expenditures are usually a little bit higher. But yeah, you said next day, but we're typically same day. So if you give me, if
Okay,
you,
even better.
yeah, if you give me an invoice for $1,000 this morning by when you woke up, we can have that money into your account. With one of our products, we can have it in seconds.
And then you basically took over that debt. And so now that the shipper owes you that money. So let's just say they pay really quickly. I get another piece of my money back after they pay you. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. And that's interesting. So what you're calling about is the rebate, what we call our denim cash, but industry wide it's called the rebate payment. So if we advance you 90% and you pay us 1%, there's that 9% remaining. And so as soon as we get paid, that money's available to the client the next business day. And so they can take that money, it's theirs. We also offer a product called what's called our DSO pricing, and it's based on how quickly or slowly your debtor pays. And so maybe your 1% base rate, but if your debtor pays in 15 days, we'll reduce that base rate to match the days to pay. So we try to be flexible because I think if you do have a debtor that pays really quickly, we're not going to want to sit there and punish you for a 30-day rate on a
Right.
15-day pay debtor.
Given what you just already said, that the average accounts payable is now 55 days. Or you call it DSO, days outstanding, days sales outstanding. And so if somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to factor this money and I got 98% of it right now, today or next day," and they pay me in 55 days rather than the 30 days that I expected, you guys are eating up more and more of that money, which makes sense because you're lending it for longer. And I think that's where the upfront knowledge really comes in handy because you can say, "God, Joe, I'm going to make a lot more money off of you on this deal. Do you still want it?" Because they didn't tell you that they'll pay you in 60 days. We're telling you they pay in 60 days. Do you still want this business?
Yeah, it's. I think it's something everybody's got to consider. It's cash flow is the lifeline of every business, but it's especially true in transportation. And so you have a debtor that says they're going to pay in 30 and they pay in 60. That's an issue. But I think the second issue that gets derived from that is Are they in good financial shape? Are they going to be able to pay their bills even at all in 90 more days? Because there's typically the only reason that a customer is going to delay payment, right? And that's to increase their cash flow by not paying their AP. And so you've got to be careful. These are just warning signs, indicators that something may be wrong. It's not necessarily
That's
possible.
what we're looking for. We're looking for insights and data that help us make better decisions.
It's where someone that goes waves a big flag and say, "Hey, we're not a good business." It's you got to look for all kind of those red flags.
Yep. Now, what if for whatever reason that company goes out of business and do you come back to me and say, "Hey, Joe, they didn't pay us at all." Am I on the hook?
It depends. We offer what's called recourse and non-recourse offerings. Recourse would be that ultimately the client is still on the hook. Non-recourse would mean the factoring company takes on the risk. And so we offer both products. At the end of the day, though, even if you're recourse, it's my goal and Denim's goal to sit there and say, okay, this debtor shorted you $30,000. You're going to have to buy this back from us at some point. We would still structure it in a way that would be paid off over time versus right up front. And so my goal is we view every client as a partnership, and so if our clients are growing, we're
Yeah,
growing.
that's what I love that. I love that. And that is so important because I don't think of factoring as a bad connotation, but I think it had a worse connotation 10 years ago, a decade ago. And so did freight brokerage. Now I think people recognize the value that a broker, because I got it when I was at a logistics. Oh, you're just a middleman. I was like, I'm a middleman who bought the technology and provides the customer service and lowered your price 30% while improving your service. You can call me a middleman if that makes you feel better, but we're adding a lot of value. And that's the same with factoring. People can go, oh, those are just money guys. They're hovering around looking to make a buck. But the stuff we've talked about so far is like a partner that says, I don't want you to lose money. So I'm doing a whole bunch of the de-risking of this transaction before I might even tell you don't take it. And the reason I don't take it is because I won't insure it. I would rather somebody tell me that. I don't use the term insure. That's for the wrong term, but
I think you're right. I think if you look at factoring companies 15, 20 years ago, there was bad factoring companies out there. They would lock you into long-term contracts, crazy or early termination fees, didn't provide much service. You look at Denim today, yes, I think the risk piece is a big piece. It is. I'm going to help you vet your debtors, your customers to make sure you get paid. But we also do more than that, right? We are also going to handle the billing of your paperwork, the invoicing of your customer. We're going to work on the collections to get paid back. So we've got teams dedicated to reaching out to those debtors saying, hey, did you get this invoice? When can we expect payment? We're then going to take that payment. We're going to apply to that invoice. After all of that, we talked about the consolidated ledger report. So not only can we take your now we're going to collect your invoices, apply it, but now we're also going to give you a ledger report so you know how to exactly break it down in your accounting books. These are all services we provide. For our brokers, we're also going to help you vet your carriers, right? And we're going to handle your carrier payments for you. So you got a carrier that wants to get quick paid, you got another carrier that doesn't, so you want to pay them in net 30 terms. We do that all through our system automatically. You don't have to think about it. It's just seamless. So not only are we helping you vet, but we're cutting your overhead cost as well.
am I right to say there's some companies that just basically say we work and we every one of our invoices is factored because we like the tool set that you guys provide?
Yeah, we've got a lot of that. We got both, right? We've got
I think if I ran a brokerage or a carrier, I might be tempted to say, I'm just pricing it in because I don't want to have that head count at my office. And it provides a lot of services that come with this.
Yeah, 100%. We've got both. What you call it spot factoring, which is some debtors, not all debtors. We call it full factoring, which is everything. I'm talking to one prospect now, and the sole reason they want to factor is to eliminate the back office, so they don't have to go hire someone in AP. They don't have to go hire someone in collections. They're going to leverage our groups to do that. And so factoring has more than one purpose of just providing capital nowadays. It's a lot of back office support that we throw into it, and it does. It allows you to scale without having to hire a bunch of people. And yeah, I think a lot of people take advantage of that.
Oh, I'm telling you, when I factored money many moons ago, when I worked for my dad's little engineering business, and we worked with the largest automotive companies in the world, based in Detroit at the time. And they were net 30, but they didn't pay us. And we had engineers who all got paid good money, and every payroll was like, God, please pay us. So our engineers and design engineers got paid every week. It was brutal. And when you go over and beg for your money after you've earned it, these huge corporations are like, Yeah, sorry, look, checks in the mail. And so when we found factoring, it was like, it was a hallelujah because it helped us make payroll when we wouldn't.
That is the classic cash crunch you're explaining right there. You create a widget, you sell that widget to some big chain market. They buy it from you, but they're not going to pay you for 90 days. In the meantime, you get another order in, but you don't get paid for that all that money for 90 days. What do you do?
Also, talking to the bank about this, saying, "Hey, the largest." By the way, that was the largest company in the world at that day, and saying to the bank that is located in the same city, "Yeah, they're not paying us on time. Could we get a little more money?" They're like they were offended. Like, how dare you? Factoring companies like, "Hey, good to know you, Joseph. Send me those invoices. Let's get started. We'll get you payment in a
Yeah.
few days."
Don't get me wrong, there's some good banks out there, but banks historically have
It's not their
been,
business.
yeah, it's not their business. And they don't move quick. And so, yeah, that's it's the advantage of factoring. We can grow and expand and customize and fit your niche. Yeah, where banks are just,
So if I was a broker, I almost have to offer this to my carrier partners now, right?
yeah, it's just if you find the right factoring company partner, you can take advantage of scale your company and grow sustainably versus growing the example you bro, it's growing rapidly out of control where you're selling a bunch of goods or you're selling a bunch of services, but the money coming back to you either is not coming back to you or you're having to wait 2 periods at a time. But this factoring is it's more than just a loan. It's
Yep.
you're getting teams behind you.
Yes. Speaking of teams, you guys have partnered up with a lot of the tech guys who help prevent freight fraud. Please talk about that.
Yeah, we partner several to come to my top of my head. It's like Carrier Assured, Freight Validate, My Carrier Portal. These are all tools that we offer.
Highway too.
Highway as well. These are all tools that we are leveraging to try to prevent that fraud from coming in the door, especially on the carrier side. When you, as a broker, go hire a carrier, you want to make sure you're giving your load to someone that's trustworthy because your reputation's online with your customer.
So how do I access that information?
From Denim, we do it all back end support for you, and so it's all seamless. So if you add a contract, what we call a contract or a carrier to your system, we are validating that in the back end for you. We're letting you know if there's any red flags, bank mismatch, bank name mismatch, carrier's got a record of not so clean of a safer FMCSA record, or maybe their authorities lapse, or they don't have insurance. We're doing that all up to the back end.
Oh, wow. So you're doing it's carrier vetting.
We're doing the carrier vetting as well. Yeah, and it's a big part of what we do because we're trying to help you eliminate that fraud. And we also, don't get me wrong, we also don't want to send money to fraudulent accounts as well.
But I think this is where this is way more than just factoring. I mentioned earlier that I'd gotten a demo of Denim, and I found the reporting, like who's my best customer in terms of margin, who pays me the fastest, who pays me the slowest. You guys are just moving the mouse, and man, it was a click, click, and tons of insights. And but first thing you look at it, go, oh, I actually make no money on this guy. The last 3 customers on my list, I make no money from them. Why am I working with them?
We had to have some tough conversations with clients who brought on some big name customers. But when you say, look, your margins
That's
aren't,
the ego work that we all get sucked into. Who I'm working with.
yeah. Well, it's just one thing we're trying to provide this kind of analytics. So we match our kind of our fraud prevention vetting system, but with our analytics as well. And so our goal is to provide you a dashboard or reports that encompasses everything, right? Because you've got to stay on top of all of it. And that's really hard to do when you're trying to run a business as well. But we can sit there and tell you, hey, these 3 carriers you're thinking about hiring are no good. By the way, your customer, you're at a -2% margin on that. It's not good. And so these are all tools to help you understand where you're either bleeding money or where you're really gaining money on certain debtors, how your carriers are doing for your services. I think these are all really important indicators for every logistics company out there.
I had written down badge next to this. What was the badge about when we talk about your tech partners?
Yeah, so we certify these customers that they've been vetted by Carrier Assured, that they're good and trustworthy carriers, and so that helps both carriers and brokers know that the whether it's the customer or the carrier that they're selecting is good and they're trustworthy, right? And so this badge is that stamp of approval and
Now,
saying
where would I see? So if I'm working with you, where do I see that badge? Do I see it when I'm in your platform?
when you're in our platform, you can search from by the customers and you can sit there and say they're this guy's got the badge of approval or this carrier's got the badge of approval. But yeah, all on our platform. It's just one of the services we provide. No extra charge, no upcharge, no per reporter on that. Just what we
Nice.
provide day to day.
Bit by bit, we're tightening this up. And I know we talked about how AI and the sophistication of freight fraud and cargo theft is growing, but so are the solutions, so are the options to solve it
Yeah, it's always this race between fraud and fraud prevention, right?
between good and evil.
Between good and evil, and maybe fraud prevention takes a step ahead, but then the fraud's right behind it, and it's leaving bounds. One thing we talked a little bit about some of the downfalls that people take, some of the kind of old school approaches, but one mentality that I always try to tell people is don't get complacent because it worked 6 months ago doesn't mean it's going to work
Oh yeah,
today. And
so
always keep
true.
researching what else is out there, what's new, how are they doing it, how are they going about it, and how you can prevent it. Because if you wait, if you're reactionary, and you wait to make those changes, it typically comes at a loss, an expensive loss, an expensive lesson. So you gotta stay on top of it. It takes a little extra work, but for clients that leverage us, that's what we're doing. For charities that leverage us, we're vetting these brokerages to let you know they're good. We're vetting these debtors to let you know they're good. But fraud's sophisticated. And so one thing that kind of keeps me up at night is what's next? What are these
Right. And
bigger
and
groups
that-
going to do?
and I know it's not what you called it today, but this is more in my mind like a fintech solution for the freight guys. I I think it's fintech for freight tech because we're all using these systems. And again, I think in days of old, I'm working if I'm a shipper, I'm working with the trucking company down the street, and I know them. We have lunch together once a quarter. We live in a different world where we don't meet the shippers. Oftentimes, we don't meet the carriers. We're all in different places, so it's nothing new to say, "Yep, I dispatched that shipment from New York, and it was picked up in California and moved to Colorado, and none of us have met." And it means the good old boy handshakes that we might have gotten by with a generation ago don't work.
Yeah, in some ways it's good, in some ways it's not. The old school handshakes, you knew the person, you got to meet them, you got to vet them. But like you said, nowadays it's just freight matching, just freight tech, right? Like freight matching, AI assisted freight matching. They're all really nice tools, but you don't meet the person, and these tools can be fooled as well. So it's a little bit harder to vet the trustworthiness, and so you've got to be careful. So where things become easy, where things become simpler, the injection of fraud becomes more of a possibility, and yeah, it's a unique combo, but that's why just picking up the phone sometimes can't beat it.
I tell you, I've said it many times on my podcast. I'm going to say it again. It's a business of partnerships, and you need visibility partners. You need maybe a TMS partner, a WMS partner, the driver technology. All those are partners. If you're a broker, you need carrier partners. If you're a carrier, you need broker partners. You also need a partner for factoring. And I think you really should go into that relationship with that attitude. It's not transactional. You can get so much more value if you say, I'm going to vet these guys and I'm going to work with the very best. And I think if you're transactional, you're losing a lot of value. And the value we just talked about is access to these tools, the reports that you can get, just a whole bunch of insights that de-risk your business and get you paid faster. And this is a place where I wouldn't want to mess around. I would make sure that I don't want to be transactional because I'm afraid of what that might happen to me. So I'm very a big believer that with factoring, you need to partner up with a company like Denim.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. We view our clients as partners because they grow, we grow, but just the nature of the business, right? At a factoring company, you are a third party stepping into a contractual obligation between a carrier and a shipper or a broker or shipper. And but we're stepping in with our clients back, right? And so we want to make sure our clients get paid because that means Denim gets paid. And so that's important for us. And so we've got dedicated departments to de-escalating risk, to collecting payments, to making sure the paperwork's correct and billed out, to applying it. So these are all things that our clients can leverage every single day and do leverage every single day. That I think a lot of times when you hear factoring, you just think of the money aspect, and but there's so much more to it.
This is a fintech solution. It really is. And again, you said it. You said it earlier that you have customers who say this allows me to reduce headcount and let us focus on what we do best. What we do best is sell and move freight. And
100%. And we moved upstream and gone after larger and larger brokerages. So what we hear a lot is we were able to eliminate some overhead. We were able to not hire when we brought in five more customers. And that's a lot of bang for the buck. Don't get me wrong. The money is also important. That cash flow is also important. But I think it's becoming 50-50 cash flow versus leveraging all these back office support tools that we do offer.
So who's the sweet spot for you guys? Who do you work with in terms of size?
Yeah, client type right now, client broker or freight brokers are our sweet spot, but we are quickly moving into the freight carrier space as well because we add a lot of value there. And we're looking from anywhere from startups to anybody that's doing 3 million to 4 million to 5 million of AR a month. Our sweet spot is in between those two numbers, where we see a lot of our clients coming from. But really, we can accommodate just about any business that you throw away. But freight brokers and freight carriers are our sweet spot. If you're doing about 100 to $1 million a month, you're going to fit really well into our niche. But if you're doing 5 million a month, you're going to fit really well into our niche. Startups, we're going to try to do our best to help you out and get going. If you're a startup brokerage and maybe you don't want to go spend all that money on these carrier vetting tools we talked about, Dan's going to provide them for you. I think that's big for startups as well.
I love it. I'm going to summarize, then I want your final thoughts on the topic. So I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, and any other links you and your go-to-market team give me. We'll put those in the show notes so people can reach out and talk to you. So I'm talking to my friend Chad Capooth, and we're talking about safeguarding your shipments, Denim's insights on fraud, payments, and carrier vetting. So we talked first about fraud. We got all these cool new tools, but the bad guys are getting more sophisticated. They're using AI. And again, we're seeing cargo theft is now a place where we're seeing the cartels that harass our borders. I love what you said about the old school approach. Pick up the phone and talk to the people you work with. That's another very useful tool. And I would also say this is a place where you work with the same people year in, year out. They're not the people who are defrauding you. It's when you pull yourself from one customer to one partner to the next. If you never commit, you're going to be more open to the challenges. Next, we talked about payments. First and foremost, you guys are about payments, and payments are not coming in on time or in full. So you mentioned this 55 days outstanding on accounts payable. That is crazy because there's a lot of people go, oh, that's net 30, net 15. And yeah, that's not what you guys are seeing. The contracts might say one thing. What the actual payment guy says is it's closer to 55. We also know margins are down for carriers and brokers. So this is a very difficult time. When you're making a little less money, you definitely can't afford risk that we've talked about quite a bit in this. So you guys will get them faster payment, whether they're carrier or broker, and you've got lots of options. So if they say, hey, we think we're going to get, I only need a little bit of that money out, please just lend me a little bit so I can make my bills and so I don't have to pay interest on all that. Or you can say, I'll give you up to 98%. That's fantastic. And then we talked a lot about the tech partners that you guys have. So Freight Validate, that's Dale Prax. And then we've got Carrier Sure, Cassandra Kane. She was supposed to join you. We didn't get her on. She's a tough get. Highway is a partner. I've interviewed those guys. And then My Carrier Portal, I just talked to Danielle Spinelli. My Carrier Portal is now part of Descartes. These are all great options all by themselves, but you guys are using, these are all partners with you guys. And now if you're a broker, you can go into your platform here with Denim and check and see, is this a carrier that everybody believes in? That's a fantastic option.
Yeah, you got to cast a wide net to prevent this fraud. And so the more tools you have access to, the better. And so we're no different. We believe the same thing. And a lot of those tools we talked about are great. We're implementing things like Plaid ID verification. We're pulling business reports to Experian, Dun and Bradstreet, and Sonia, and so on. So we're pulling a lot of tools, using a lot of tools, not just only to vet on the carrier side, but we're also trying to vet on the debtor side, the customer side. We're doing everything we can to prevent fraud at every single front. And so the more tools, the better.
I love it. So put a big old bow on this one, Chad. Final thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, fraud is evolving. It's evolving more rapidly and better than it ever has. And for all the good that AI has done and will continue to do, this is an unfortunate byproduct of it is fraudsters or bad actors can use it to become better at what they do and more sophisticated we do. So it's always going to be this evolving battle between the two, staying out in front of it. Don't get complacent. Stay on top of what's happening, understand how they're starting to use some of these technology and tools to try to defraud you or your business, and just implement processes. Review your processes you've had in place and make sure they're still up to date. Make sure that you're still on top of it. And if you find any kind of gaps or potential holes in that, quickly learn how to adapt. If you can find a partner out there to help you do that, whether it's through a KYC, I know your customer type of tool out there to work in investigating. If you're looking for that cash flow, invest into a factoring company that also has all these tools. And yeah, it's a shameless plug for Denim, but that's what we pride ourselves on. It's offering more than just factoring. I
It
just stay on
really
top
is
of it.
more like, I'm not saying this to be salesy, but it is more of a fintech solution because you get a lot of insights that you don't. It's not just I'll get you a check. It is I'll help you every step of the way to make this business
Yeah,
work.
we're vested in what you like. We are vested in trying to make sure that your customers are good and paying you on time.
Yep. So I normally ask people what conferences will we see you at, but I know how Denim is. I don't go to any conferences where Denim's not there.
Yeah, we try to participate in a lot. I know we've got two upcoming. We've got the Bitfreighter event in August. I believe that's actually here in Nashville, and I'll be at that one.
All right.
And then we also have the TAI in the cloud, which I think is in September. So those are two off the top of my head that we'll be at. But if you come to Bitfreighter and you want to talk with me, I'm always happy to talk fraud, and I'd probably talk your ear off. You might have to tell me to shut up.
I see you guys at all the conferences. So I know there's an automotive logistics conference here in Detroit let's see, when is that? That's in September. I'm going to IANA, which is the Intermodal Association North America. That comes up in September also. And then I'll be at Trimble conferences down in, let's see, that's in November in New Orleans. I'm missing one. Oh, the Broker Carrier Summit. I can't forget that. That's down in Orlando this year. I know every time I go to these conferences, I see you guys.
We'll be there.
And usually in force. So,
Yes, we'll be there. We're working on a lot of cool new features that we're going to be rolling out for the remaining of the year. Yeah.
CSCMP Edge, that'll be in Maryland in October. So I know you guys will be there too.
Yeah, I always happen to talk, whether it's just discussing back and forth, if you've got good ideas. We're always trying to investigate ways to bring on new technologies or bring on new partners or bring on new clients. So feel free to stop by. We'll be at those events and happy to talk and discuss.
Chad, thank you so much for taking the time. I love what you guys are doing.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been a blast and happy to answer any questions with any of your audience members going forward. Otherwise, I really appreciate this.
Yep. Again, I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, any of the links you and your marketing team give me. I'll put those in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time, Chad.
Thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day.
And thank you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.